Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show, we have a talk about a Linux project, a distribution, desktop environment, or application. We could also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the Linux community. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I have Aris, Jinda, Colin, Eric, Mark, Ulfnic, or is it Ulfnic? I actually don't know how it's pronounced. And Vince. How is everybody?
Good. How are you?
Yep. Good.
Great. I'm so glad you're all here tonight because, you know, it's February. It means, I think, Valentine's Day? Is that this month?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So I have the lights on to red, white, and pink to celebrate the crazy holiday that is Valentine's Day. So you're welcome.
Very festive.
It is.
I can feel the love.
Is that an Elton John song?
If it's not, it should be.
I'm not singing it if that's what you're asking.
I actually was hoping, but if you absolutely
I'll work myself up to it. How's that sound?
Okay. All right. Well, before I continue at all, if you have not taken the StrawPoll, Aris's fantastic StrawPoll, I need some sort of an alliteration with Aris and awesome. Aris's absolutely awesome StrawPoll. There we go. There's my alliteration. Please do so. The link should be in the chat, or someone can put it in the chat, I'm sure. It's how old is the oldest computer that you're using regularly? And I think this is going to be a fun one, especially for me, because. Make sure you do that poll. All right, so on the docket for today, we'll be doing a application Appetizer Potluck. We'll check what's on the menu for next week and do our last call. But first, what have we been doing in Linux? I didn't get anything ahead of time, but I had something prepared. So I have a device. It's called the C64. It's made in the United Kingdom. So for all you Brits out there, thank you for having all this cool tech come from your part of the world. And what this is it's a Commodore 64 like machine with a working keyboard, but it has USB, HDMI, and then micro USB for power. So this is a very cool device. What makes it neat is I can basically all right, so the Commodore 64 is not a massively amazing gaming machine, but it has a lot of very fun games, and people are still developing for it now. But one of the irritations with it is the original hardware is kind of slow and cumbersome and whatnot. And I have many Commodore 64s, but and I like them. I don't want to get rid of them. But this is more fun for you hooking up in the living room for everyone to play. There's a lot of really fun games to play. And so inside of that machine is actually an ARM board, not too dissimilar to a Raspberry Pi. It's not a Raspberry Pi, but it's not too dissimilar. And it's actually running Linux in there. And there's no way to actually get to that, but I found a way. So there's a way to basically, instead of doing a firmware upgrade, it's the same process of doing a firmware upgrade, but it's basically this little executable thing, and then it actually opens up the Linux underpinnings with X Windows, so X11, not Wayland, and it has LMDE, I believe, is the interface, so you can go through and you can manage files and whatnot right on that machine. Now one of the things that I think is kind of disappointing about the machine the way it is you can't, if you do a configuration file, you have to put on a USB drive, take it to your computer, put on, make the edits, bring it back, plug it in, then try it and go back and forth with it. But now I can do it all on that one machine. I couldn't get the network stack. I don't think it's not really there. It only has 102 megabytes of RAM available, so there's not a whole lot you can do with it, but you can do some really basic things, and it's very cool. And I'm glad I found this on a forum, and so I've been playing with that a little bit. But it's actually been quite handy. So I could, write papers on this if I really felt like, or write distraction-free writing. Although it's not, it's probably not the best machine for that because if you're doing it in the living room, you're looking way up in the air. But anyway, I just think it's really cool, and it's a fun thing I discovered, and I understand how to use it. And I'll be releasing a video and an article on that in the very near future. So no, it's not an old machine, but it's meant to mimic an old machine, and it's a lot of fun. That would have been something that maybe Servan would have enjoyed because it's a single board computer inside there. Anyway.
I was just going to say, I guess I just haven't, I mean, I have the one Pi that I use, and it's like a version 2, I think, and I have Pi-hole on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess outside of that, I just haven't run into any instance, I guess areas where where I need something like that. I mean, maybe I don't do enough home automation stuff, or yeah, I just, it's really interesting, and I see a lot of people doing projects, and I'm glad that it's sort of, Pi has sort of spawned this whole market of single board computers, and they're now, we went from a few choices to all of these different options. I guess I don't know. It's something I like to keep an eye on, and I love to hear you talk about it and other people, but I don't know at what point. I guess I just don't see like a need for it on a day-to-day basis. Like, maybe I should come up with things, or
I think your usage of it as a Pi-hole, that's probably an ideal usage of it. A specific, now people disagree with it. People will disagree with me on this point, but something like a Raspberry Pi. Now this is a very customized piece of kit because it has, a power button on there and some other like intelligence slapped on it. That's, makes it a functional appliance. But there are, as far as like using a Raspberry Pi or Pine 64 as a computer, it's not really, for a general purpose computer, I would say it's not really best suited for that. It's better suited for a specific purpose. I suppose if you're going to have a workstation that does a thing like just GIMP or whatever, it'd be fine for that. But you don't have the ability to suspend it, put it to sleep, either hibernate or sleep, and then bring it back. Linux can actually make it do that, but the problem is you can't have it wake back up. So it's not really good for that purpose. But a little Raspberry Pi, like a Pi Zero, that runs like a little service that you can use to communicate with something else, like a specific function, that actually works great for that. It does that job maybe better than a traditional general purpose computer, because it's a specific function. When it's powered, you want it to turn on and just run, and then sip as little power as possible. You're not jamming a bunch of stuff in there. But I think, so something like this, it's fine because you just use it to do a single function, and then I'm using it to do some, to edit some files for my convenience, which by the way is great. I wouldn't really use it as a general purpose computer. I might try and get it to do some things, but it's like trying to take a rickshaw on the highway. Really, it's just not. Right. It's just not going to be good for anybody. Well,
what single board did you put in your daughter's little computer?
It's a Pi 4, and I do want to change that with yeah. And that one of the challenges, because it is a Pi, is it doesn't have that sleep or suspend function, or when you turn it off. If you turn it off, there's not really a way to turn it back on unless you you basically short something out or unplug it and plug it back in. I put a battery pack on there too, so it's got like a little UPS system on there, and so it doesn't really actually increases the challenge of it. So I put a hard toggle switch on there, so when you turn it off, then you power it down. It's kind of like going back in time about 30 years, before the ATX standard, using like AT standard. It's basically, Pi is like going back like 30 years for as far as computer usage. And actually, it's probably why I like it, because it is that simple and rudimentary.
Yeah.
I could never find a use for a Pi, to be honest. I would like to buy one, but I don't have a specific use for it. But don't people use Pis for home servers? Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And, if you don't have like a lot of traffic, I think it does that. They'll do that job quite well. I mean, I use a Pi-hole as it's a local DNS service. It also does filtration. It does that, fantastically well. I just use a Pi 3B plus, I believe is what it is, and I like it for that. And then I use it for other, like Home Assistant. I use it for that right now, although it's going to be the Pi is going to be retired off of that for a different function because I want something a little more powerful. But the Pi does really well for a lot of these, single purpose, bespoke, tasks. I think it's very well suited for that. So, but I mean, if you don't, the other thing too is like if you want to do like physical computing, the Pi is also great for that too. So like for education, if you want to actually build like circuits, buttons or whatever to interact with, sensors and the like, it's great for that. Something that it's on my list, my rather extensive list of things that I may not ever get to because it's just how life is, right? Is taking a Pi and using it to interact with there's like little weather stations, like those, I can't remember the name brands of them, but like there's like weather stations you can put on your house. You can buy at like Lowe's or some other hardware store, and then you can actually put an adapter on there to read that wireless signal and then interpret it and actually give you a weather report based on what that's seeing. So your rainfall, the wind direction, stuff like that. So again, I think a Pi is better suited for that function because it has all those general purpose input and output pins right there, and it's small and uses very little power. So that's where I think it's best suited.
I can add something to the Pi VPN, Pi hole discussion, because if you add Pi VPN to your Pi hole, and they actually work really well together, if you follow the instructions on the website for Pi VPN, I'll get the link and the share and chat. But Pi hole I find works really well for your mobile devices because in your desktop or your laptop browsers, you've probably already got an ad blocker extension of some sort. But that's harder for your mobile tablets and phones. If you add Pi VPN to it and have your phone connected to the Pi VPN all the time, whenever you're out of the house, you've also still got the ad blocking. And I use that and it works really well. And then when you get home and you're back on your Wi-Fi, the routing that it does still makes it work with the Pi hole. So it's just seamless. It's automatic. I found the link, so I'll just post it in chat for Pi VPN. I like using that together with Pi hole. It's pretty awesome.
Does that use something like Wireshark or whatever it's called? WireGuard?
WireGuard?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use OpenVPN or WireGuard with it. I know everyone's been talking about Tailscale, and I would presume that might work pretty well as well. But I'd found this one first, so I've been using this one.
That's very cool.
I mean, give this a look. Sure. Yeah.
And Jeremy Smith in chat says, in my humble opinion, Raspberry Pis and other cheap SBCs or single board computers democratize the building of useful electronics. Yes, they absolutely do. And that's really what I love about them. It's kind of like the modern day Heathkit for those that are old enough to know what that is.
Yeah,
Jinda's definitely old enough, and Mark is certainly old enough for that. Maybe Eric. But yeah, for sure. That's actually the beautiful thing about the Pi is just it does, for a hobbyist or someone who wants to play around with these things, it's a great for prototyping stuff as well. I know, like when I worked for a rather large corporation, we used Raspberry Pis for building proof of concepts because you could do it very quickly and you could do a thing on it, whatever that might be, some sort of interface or even like data collection and whatever else. So it's really cool to do these different things with the Pi, as such. And then, yeah, that's what I really think is quite fantastic.
Sorry, Vince, does your Pi VPN do all of the network through just the single Ethernet port, or does it have to have multiple ports for the throughput?
No, just a single Ethernet. All it's doing is creating a WireGuard VPN network back to your home network. It's not. You can still use it as a DNS if you want to use Pi-hole as a DNS. That's basically how it works. It changes the servers.
Can you have Pi-hole and Pi VPN on the same Pi, or is that too much?
Yeah, no. They actually specifically in the instructions for Pi VPN tell you how to do that.
Oh, okay.
And cool. if you install, I can't remember the order. If you install it I think if you install Pi-hole first, and then you install Pi VPN will recognize that Pi-hole is there and just automatically route it.
Oh wow!
If you do it the other way around, there's some instructions to just change the configs.
Nice.
Oh, that's very cool. Okay.
It's really just a script, the Pi VPN.
Gotcha.
This is
Okay.
going up under follow-up notes right here. I'm going to do that right now. ivpn.io. That's super cool. I got to stop saying cool. Awesome. Fantastic. That's a great project right there.
Awesome. That's a cool word.
Or you can say,
Okay,
it is. Ausgezeichnet, if you want to be German.
That's cool.
I wasn't going to go there, but anyway. So we've been reading Nancy Drew as bedtime material for my daughter.
Oh, cool.
And one of Nancy Drew's friends in the book says hypers instead of like jeepers or wowzers. She says hypers. Apparently in like the 50s, that was like a thing. I haven't looked it up, but yeah, it's so weird. And it drives my daughter crazy. She's like, why does she say hypers? It's like, this was written a long time ago. So I've considered adopting it and have people look at me like I was insane.
So there's similarly, the term "that's the cat's pajamas," I think from the 1920s. That's one that I use, but that actually makes more sense than hypers, I think, because if you say that's the cat's pajamas, it's.
I think a word that needs to come back is swell. That
well.
How about groovy? We can use
Sure.
groovy.
Swell. No, I'm with Adam on that one.
Swell.
Yeah, Harry Callahan invented that.
We could do it, Adam. If we
could,
push it enough.
I've wanted to, but I brought back rad in my stuff. Boss. All sick and nasty is even in there sometimes, but I just can't get swell in there.
That might be a hard one. So there is don't forget to vote in the poll. If you just joined the stream, we got a straw poll. It's a great one. How old is your oldest computer that you continue to use? But yes, when I was deployed overseas with the military, I tried to incorporate Groovy very unsuccessfully, but I still did it anyway. It was like nails on a chalkboard to people, but I felt good about doing that.
Yeah, gnarly is another word that I use
Yes,
a lot.
yeah. Is that 80s or 70s gnarly?
It's like a late 80s 90s surfer kind of thing, right?
It's a little on the edge, but what about bitchin'?
Whoa!
Yeah. I don't know. It's maybe.
It's a pretty good one.
I have to ask the dogs about that one.
I only usually say bitchin' if it's like really exciting. Like if I'm just like really pumped about something, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. Can't just throw that one out there. It has to be.
No, it's gotta carry its weight. Yeah.
Gotcha. Steven Anderson says the one he doesn't like is dude.
Dude, why not?
Dude.
So Sean Gould in the chat, he asks me, have I been following the Commander X16 project at all? And yes, I have. And I guess that's going to be released here pretty soon. I'm very interested in it. I just have so many other things I'm interested in. I think I have to, cool the pocketbook here for a bit. But yeah, that is a very gnarly project.
So I don't have a whole lot of naval knowledge, but isn't a commander a lesser rank than a Commodore?
Yeah, Commodore's not used anymore. I believe like Rear Admiral or something like that. I don't know what it replaced, but Commodore's replaced by something.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the reasons Jack Trammell chose the name Commodore, because it was like Admiral. He actually wanted Admiral, but that was already a car, and so you chose Commodore.
Yeah. Better than Butterbar.
Yep, second lieutenant. Or ensign in the Navy.
According to Wikipedia, it's a senior naval rank used in many navies, which is equivalent to brigadier and air commodore. That's
okay.
Right, Commodore.
So brigadier would be an 07, brigadier general. Is brigadier, major, be my lieutenant general, and then general, or something like that?
It is supposed to be superior to a Navy captain, but below a rear admiral.
Okay.
In Australia, it's a popular Holden car. A popular Holden car is a Commodore.
Yep.
Yep.
It's just a fun name to say. Just start randomly calling people Commodore. See what that gets you.
They'll think you're saying comrade wrong.
Right. Don't you mean comrade? No.
That guy's a comradist.
Yeah. He's a Commodorist. Yeah.
All right.
So
Well,
are we staying on topic, Nate?
no,
Is this
we
working?
No.
we totally
No.
we totally derailed, but it
my
was a lot of
fault.
fun.
It's my fault.
No,
Sorry.
it's not.
I don't know where we went.
I mean, that conversation was the cat's pajamas. Aris,
It was definitely rad.
it was tubular
Yes.
or neat. I think Matt Adams
Mm.
says that sometimes. Like to me, it's very condescending. Now we've just like lost. Okay, back in the derailing. But the term neat. If anytime somebody uses neat, to me it always sounds really condescending. This is like when someone says, "Hey, look at this, neat."
Yeah. Neat. Like it's the most non-committal response they could give to it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The text chat equivalent of that is the thumbs up emoji.
Really? See, I like the
That's
thumbs
how
up
I
emoji.
interpret that. Because like if I say something to somebody and they respond with like a neutral face and a thumbs up, it's obvious they don't give a damn what you just said. And that's exactly what I get out of the text chat. Is like when they give me a thumbs up, I'm like, you don't even care what I just said.
See, now I like the thumbs up because, you know, I grew up with the thumbs up as being a good thing, but I can see how it can maybe its
Right.
meaning has shifted a little bit.
They didn't care enough to respond with a word. So
Sometimes you can't respond. Like if I'm driving and telegramming, I don't want to type. I just want to. I'm just kidding.
that's what your knees are for.
That's right. It is.
You like that one?
Yeah. Vince gave us a thumbs up. Oh, Aris gave the the non-smiley face. That's funny.
Yeah, that face and that's the face the person's giving when they give you the thumbs up emoji, right? They're just like,
Yeah, I like the thumbs up. Maybe I've been offending people all this time now, and I just don't know it. Man, I'm a jerk. All right, back on track. Aris,
Yes.
so you did a straw poll. How old is your oldest computer that still gets regular use? How did that turn out?
Well, 32% of people said that between 5 years old and 10 years old. 29% said between 10 years old and 15 years old. And then 23% said 15 years or older.
Ah,
7% said between 2 years old and less than 3 years old. 7% said between 3 years old to less than 4 years old. And the last one was other, which was 3%. But I didn't get a reply, I think. So I don't know what they meant by other.
maybe like parallel universe. Maybe they got it from another dimension, and so it doesn't really fit. Can't really put a timetable on it.
So
So
that
Aris-
would be the 63% of people have a computer that's at least 5 years old or older. They still use.
Yeah, it's interesting that so less than 6 months, between 6 months and a year, 1 and 2 years, 4 and 5 years, got nothing. So it seems like this would be an interesting thing to graph, like where these things sit, like a bar graph or something like that. But yeah, that's interesting. What can you change?
No,
to?
I
I'm a little surprised
messed up.
that-
It's actually 85%. Sorry, it's 85%. 85%, not 63. It's 85.
Okay, I was gonna say that sounds low. I was surprised that, especially for Linux. You figure that keeps a machine going usually longer. So
It makes sense because I think computer parts have gone up quite a fair bit in the last couple of years, haven't they? I know
Well,
over here they have.
they have, but also the whole exponential rate of like improvement seems to have slowed to some degree, at least for me. Like I don't feel the need to really upgrade. I did a pretty substantial upgrade on my desktop, and it's marginally faster, but not worth what I did. So like I'll probably wait longer next time, because I mean, like rendering something that would have taken 20 minutes now takes like 16 minutes. It's like whoopity-doo. But in the past, if you waited 5 years, that would have been a huge jump.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like it's just less now.
Yeah, true. I agree.
So Aris, how old is your oldest computer that still gets regular use?
I think 10 years old.
10 years old?
Yeah.
What is that? Was it something you built or something you bought?
It's a laptop.
Okay, laptop. the battery still working it?
But I think so, but I don't really use the battery. It's pretty much like a desktop at this
Oh,
point.
okay. What about you, Jinda? How old is the oldest computer that gets regular use?
It's from 2015.
Okay.
It's a really crappy, inexpensive, cheap laptop with 2 gigs of RAM in it. It's got stickers all over it.
It's one of those.
I got it for free because it, for some reason in Windows, it would lock up for no apparent reason since the guy had it. And he went to return it and they said no, because he had it because by the time the problem developed with some stupid update, it was too late. And for some reason you have to take the battery out of it to, get it to come back on. And there's something seriously wrong with it, but I've never had the problem in Linux with it. But from taking the battery in and out so much, the battery, the plastic is so, how to say this, fatty, so to speak. It split the battery. And when you plug it in, sometimes it won't work. You have to take it apart and you look at it, you can see where it's cracked. So I pumped it full of glue to try to hold it together, and it's been working ever since.
Whatever it takes, really.
Yeah, whatever it takes. And I use it to surf the web, when I'm searching for something outside, I take it outside and I surf the web with it.
Yeah, I use a lot of like Loctite for fixing plastic. And this stuff right here is
exactly
really
what I used. I used the Loctite glue.
Accelerator. This is great too, so you can actually layer on the repair.
Yep.
And it works really well.
This man is the Chat GPT of props. This man, it doesn't even matter. The situation shows up, he has one.
Boom. A winning lotto ticket. Boom.
Well, if you actually saw like how this was right now, you would probably like vomit a little bit in your mouth with the mess that it is, because I have too many things going on at once, and it's kind of bad. I had to.
Yeah, but it serves the show.
Well, I mean, it does. Yeah, I mean, I can show other things too, but nothing that would make sense. Colin, how old is your oldest computer that you still use?
I think both of them are between 5 and 10. I think this Toshiba laptop, I'm still using that regular because I do testing on it. I don't use it as a daily driver, but definitely do some testing and things like that. My daily driver, I think, is probably older than 5 years, I believe. But this Toshiba could be older than 10. I did put 5 to 10 because I think they're both within that area. But this Toshiba laptop, the battery's totally cactus. It's got no screen, right? So it's just plugged into external monitor. But it's got good I put an SSD in it, and it's got 8 gigs of RAM, so it works pretty well. It's great for testing, and it's got that the one I've talked about, the Optimus NVIDIA card. So it's really good test when you're trying things to see how good NVIDIA installs. If that NVIDIA installs, then always a distro, if it works well, gets a thumbs up for that, because it is a real nightmare to get that running. I've never succeeded in Debian or Arch to get it going, to be honest.
So when you say thumbs up, is that like a straight face, like meh thumbs up, or like an Atom thumbs up, or is that more like a
that's 2 thumbs up.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Wait, does 2 thumbs up make that even worse?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that like?
and the big smile is really sarcastic, or?
I think 2 thumbs up is just like 2 thumbs up is just a primordial finger guns. So like it's just it's on its way to a positive.
It's the fawns.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Ron Singh in chat says ThinkPad X31 from 2003 with a Pentium M, 1.6 gigahertz CPU, and 2 gig of RAM, running XP for ODBC code reading for his automobiles, used 4 times a year. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, why change something if it works? So what about you, Eric? What is your oldest computer that still gets regular use? I know you said you had some, like your daughter has like a 10-year-old machine. Is that the machine?
Yeah, it's a Samsung. I don't know what made me buy it. I've always had Dells, but it was one of those, like, I was just so sick of the computer I had, and I walked into Best Buy and I just looked at the computers that they had there, and for some reason this one appealed to me. It had a metal shell, which at the time most laptops were still plastic, so metal was like the top was metal. So it was very sleek, it was very small and lightweight. I think that might have been it. I had these gigantic Dell, the old XPSs, the 17-inch ones were just massive. I mean, they weighed like 10 pounds. And so I was traveling a lot, and I think I just got sick of lugging that thing around. And so I went and bought a smaller system, and it truly blows my mind that thing still runs, and has no real issues. Even my daughter, I had to laugh Jinda talking about putting stickers on it, because she's got, it's just literally covered in stickers, which I told her to do. I'm like, it's your computer, do whatever you want to it,
Right.
And yeah, she's got the keys, like it's nothing's backlit or anything, but the letters have rubbed off a couple of them, so we've like written in the letters, and it's very janky, but it just keeps working. And like I said, until she grows out of it and needs something more powerful, there's no reason to get rid of it. It's never going to get used again once she's done with it. So
Right.
But
Good choice then.
Yeah, my laptop now it just turned 4 years old this month, and it needs a new keyboard because this one is just failing. It's so weird. I don't know what it is, but it was on the left side to start, like Q, W, E, R just randomly don't work. And now some of the numbers don't work, and the right side, and it's not that they don't work, it's that you can't just touch type on them anymore. You have to be deliberate about them. And so excuse me, I bought a replacement keyboard. It was only about $30, but to get the keyboard replaced, you have to literally take everything out. So it's going to be like an entire day project, and I'm not as enthusiastic about those types of things as I used to be. And because this is my primary machine, I'm really a little apprehensive, because if I mess it up, like, I guess either I hopefully can fix it if I messed it up, but if I hose it, then, I'm gonna have to get a new laptop. Like I did with that Samsung, I can't just go buy a laptop. Now I'm gonna have, I'd have to research, what would I want, and so anyway, I don't have anything really new except for my desktop. That's the newest thing. So my wife has my hand-me-down that was 3 years old when I got this one. So she has a 7-year-old Dell laptop that's still working. She does graphic design on it. When I was working and was using my computer constantly, 12 hours a day for business, there's no way I would have kept this for 4 years. I would have probably kept it for 2 and upgraded to something newer, because I was just in that cycle of doing that. I would get something new, hand it down to my wife, my old one, but now it's just kind of like, I only use it a few hours a day, and it just I don't have the same needs that I did. So, and I find that I use mobile devices a lot more now. Sorry, Colin. What?
No, that's all right. Does she use Linux as well, or Windows?
I've tried. The graphic design software she uses only runs on Windows.
Right.
And I could do, I don't know, virtualization, or try to do something. She already has enough. She's already a difficult enough user in terms of like little things bother her, and it has to be a certain way. And like literally, if I get her a new computer, I have to put the same wallpaper on. I have to like put the icons in the same location. Like she just remembers where things are, and that's how she uses a computer.
Should be.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Her phone, I got her a new phone for Christmas. And we're just now, like within the last 2-3 weeks, like making a concerted effort to get off the old phone. And it's okay. Like, it's fine. She's just that type of person.
Yep.
Whereas I'm very much like, I'm on to the next thing. Like, forget that. I'm done with it. Let's move forward. So anyway.
We could do is probably just like do a bait and switch and put like Linux Mint on there or like Zorin OS. It looks really Windowsy, and then you just or Windows or the Linux FX. You could try that one. Or was it Windows FX? What is it called? The one that spies on you.
Yeah.
That had a data breach. Try that one and see how long you can get away with that.
No, I'm happy with it working. I mean, it's another one. I'm really surprised with it being probably 7 years old. Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
That it still keeps just chugging along. So
If it isn't broken, there's no need to break it.
Yep.
Mark, how old is your oldest computer you use?
It looks like my 2 Dell R710 servers were released in 2009. Now, these were new to me, just a few years ago, but I believe that those come in at being the oldest. And I tell you what, I use those every day. I've got all sorts of, both are running ESXi, and then I have lots and lots of Linux VMs running, and I have Pi-hole running as a VM, and that that serves the entire family. So that's definitely regular use. And then I also looked. I thought my oldest computer was actually a custom build gigabyte motherboard AMD Athlon 64, which serves as my gateway. It's running OPN Sense, and that of course serves the whole family too. That's firewall and DNS, DHCP, all that. So that one is from 2010. So these are actually very critical to everything I do, working from home. And I didn't realize that these are, over 10 years old. So 13, 14 years. Yeah.
Have you run into any limitations, like they're just not powerful enough to do what you need it to do, or is there plenty of headroom as far as processing and storage capabilities?
So for OPN Sense, I did give that machine an upgrade a couple of years ago. I got a new case, and I got a maybe a little bit higher power watt power supply. I probably put an SSD in there, but it's got I just have notes here. It's got a pass mark of 923. And you know what? It runs OPN Sense just great. Now I will tell you, one of the a regular maintenance thing that I would do on that is every couple of years I go in and put new CPU paste on there, and definitely I take it out and get the air compressor and blow all the dust out of there. Try to keep that all clean and such. So that is regular maintenance I do on something that old. I'm not even sure if there's a GPU in there right now. It may have had a GeForce built onto the board. Can't recall. Now on the Dell servers, I don't know anything about Xeon, so I stay away from that. I probably should. I wonder if there's a CPU paste that needs to get replaced in there on the Xeons, but honestly, I've stayed away from it. Those are so critical that I just kind of leave them alone. In fact, recently I looked at the uptime on one of my servers. It was 600 days. I was like, wow. If I was a production environment, that would be pretty darn good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Oh yeah, you did. In spades.
Yeah, that's cool. I was just gonna say, it feels like when I was younger, working on my own computers, and even with store-bought stuff, it just feels like components would fail on a much more regular basis. And I don't know if that speaks to manufacturing processes or quality assurance, or like what it is that has changed so that modern computers, and I'm saying within the last 15 years, just seem like they aren't as prone. Like if they're going to fail, they're going to fail pretty early. And then if they get past a certain point, like I used to have like power supplies would die all the time. Like that was just a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
they just don't.
I think there was a time a couple of years
Anymore.
ago, and again,
Yep.
maybe it's been more than 10 years, that Thermaltake came out, and it was a little bit better quality, case fans and CPU fans and that type of thing. And and then some of the power supply companies, there was a time where I'd get the cheapest of the power supplies, but then there was a couple like Coolmaster, and some of those started coming out, and they were a little bit better quality, and they seemed to last longer. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think some of that was, maybe it's kind of putting a name to those things instead of just being a white box label. Maybe that maybe they did increase the quality a little bit better.
Yeah.
Definitely CPU coolers that came with the AMDs. Those were much better than third parties.
I just, it's surprising to me to hear how many people have good experiences with very old hardware. Sometimes it's hard to let go of that kind of stuff. Like I guess I still somewhere in my mind remember how fragile hardware used to be, and how temperamental. And it just doesn't seem like that happens anymore. Maybe that's just good luck. I'm not sure.
So Ron says in chat, 600 days, my IT guy would be vibrating like crazy, as it means that security updates are likely not applied forever, unless you can hot patch.
No, I've applied patches through the VMware, and those can be done hot typically.
And then Ulfnic says, I've switched to dry graphite pads instead of paste, so I don't have to replace the GPU CPU paste. And I question his the thermal properties. And Ron says that the thermal transfer specs of that are decently close to that of paste. Oh, he actually asked. Decently close. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting because I know like the small single board computers often have like those pads that come with it for such things, but when I buy a CPU or a cooler, I always get paste. So I don't know. I could see how like the pad might be better because you're gonna have that consistent contact throughout. It just doesn't matter if you do a dabble, a dot, or an X, or if you don't over, you can't overdo it then. So there's a lot of things that might work in your favor on that. But I don't know. That's interesting.
I did, and another one I know that I've done thermal paste on is some GPU boards that come with the fan, mounted on there and such. I know I've had to replace the thermal paste on that, and it brought new life to a card that was freaking out. So
that's great.
Putting new paste on it, and but I don't know. I haven't done the study on the pads. I know I have pads on some things, and I'm sure that yeah, I guess I've never really researched that one being better than the other.
It sounds like a great assignment for Adam.
Hit me up.
So Jeremy Smith in chat says I've got an R710 and R720 sitting right here. The Toshiba Cosimo notebook I bought in 2005 is probably the oldest machine I still use once in a while for testing, not daily. I think that counts.
If you still look at a computer as being a useful object and not just, a nostalgic thing, like if you had something you needed to do and you thought, if you think of a computer as being something that you can actually use to complete a task, then I think it's still useful. If it's a curiosity, if it's a, oh, I like the look of it, you know, I'll have the stack of laptops behind me sort of thing, then yeah, then even if it comes on, then maybe that's not really in the spirit of this. But yeah, I mean, if you have that old laptop that you test stuff on, like, great, still works. I mean, no, my thing is, if it still works, you know, I was telling you the story about saving all the computers from the offices that were closing down instead of throwing them in a dumpster. You know, just if there's life left in it, it just seems like such a waste to throw it away. And I've gotten past my years of, you know, having like Mark with all the computers in his office. Like I used to be like that, and I did have a use for them all whenever I was, you know, in the midst of my career. But once I didn't need them, I was slowly sort of sunset all of them, and you know, I'm so bare bones now compared to what I was. But it's interesting, Mark. Do you say you virtualized the Pi-hole? I've heard some discussion on, you know, what's the tipping point between having a bunch of Pis doing something versus having an old x86 system virtualized doing the same thing. You know, what's the trade-off and like the advantage of that? So it's kind of interesting that you went that route.
Yep. And it works great.
Yeah.
I did separate devices because I would not consider myself adept at using virtual machines. So better I stick to what I know than, you know, bet the farm on something I don't.
It's a single point of failure. You know, if you had 10 virtual machines running different single instances of stuff and that system died, then yeah.
But Mark has 10 plus years on one machine that with 600 days of uptime. That kind of builds a lot of confidence in his choice of hardware. I doubt I'll get that much uptime out of a Pi-hole with an SD card.
Yeah, that guy's like 80 years old. I have a lot of confidence he's going to keep living.
Well, yes, but you're saying a computer is what, 10 years for every like
every year?
No, I'm just saying like it's been around for a long time, so maybe its days are actually kind of numbered, and he should probably figure out a DR solution real quick.
Yeah, maybe.
Just say.
Well, I mean, if you maintain them, I don't know. I'm not the expert there.
No, I'm a little worried about that those are my oldest, but you know, and they're so critical to everything that goes on here. There was a time when I tried to, I wanted to set up a DR between my physical OPNsense, you know, gateway and a virtual OPNsense, but I'm not sure if that's possible. So I never completed that challenge that I wanted. But
you could put them, if you have the option, you could set up something like HA proxy, something like that, with a keep alive D to make sure that they're going, and then if one fails, the other kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
Can you have it automatically migrate if it recognizes that something is going wrong?
The idea would be to have as identical of a thing as possible. It's basically load balanced.
Oh, okay. Very funny. Steve Anderson says, my copier is 12 years old, if that counts. I think it's amazing you have a copier that can last that long. I mean, anything that shovels paper through it doesn't seem to last.
Right.
Vince, how old is your oldest computer, if you're still there? You might have walked away.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. I have a EliteBook 9480M, which I believe was manufactured in 2014, but I only acquired it in 2018. And it was the computer that I acquired to go full on into Linux desktop. I wanted a separate machine that I could just try it out on. It's been a really, really reliable, so reliable that I still use it for work.
Oh, wow.
So it gets carried with me, it gets bashed around. So it has on the back of it the old-fashioned type, latch battery, so you could actually pull the battery out. Now, when I got it, the battery that it was in it was dead, so I replaced it then. And recently, I've noticed that the casing for the battery is cracked. Now, I checked, it's not swollen, so I suspect that I've just maybe squashed it in my bag somehow or done something physical to it. So I'm just about to acquire another battery, and they actually still you can buy original HP batteries for these machines, which is really cool. Yeah, it also has a separate compartment on the back for the 2.5-inch drive, and you can undo a few other screws to get to the RAM. I actually also, since you guys were talking about it, I recently opened it up and replaced the thermal paste on it too, following the HP service and maintenance guides, which are also very good. They're generally pretty good for these business grade machines, so that's why I kind of have stuck with them if I could. And by stick with them at the moment, now I'm up to my 3rd EliteBook, so I'm starting a bit of a collection. Yeah, I've got a 6th Gen one, and now I've recently got an 8th Gen one, and they're swell. I like them.
That's swell.
So at home I use the 8th Gen. At work I'm still using this 4th Gen one, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, I mean, there's not really a point in changing it, I think. And that's at 4th Gen Intel?
i5.
Sorry,
yeah, 4th Gen i5.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got docks for them. The old-fashioned latch. You plonk it in the dock and slam a switch, and it's in there solid.
Yeah, I prefer that over the USB-C only because it's a real reliable connection and easy to pop on and off. But I like the flexibility of USB-C because it's so universal. So.
Yeah, I mean these older docks, they take space. I mean, they take space in the machine itself because you've got to have the latch mechanisms.
Right.
But USB-C is nice as well.
I was suspicious of USB-C for a while, but I'll tell you, especially with devices and everything, once you have USB kind of across the board, life gets easy.
Yeah, it really does. The fact that between my Steam Deck, my EliteBook, all taking USB-C chargers, and the kid Switch, we just have to bring one power supply with us, and then that's it. It's less stuff, to have to keep around. So it's pretty nice.
And it's just easy, that the days of like, which way is the plug, and like trying to shove it in there. It's just so nice to whoever thought of USB-C was working, had their brain cells working that day, no doubt.
I do wish that the contacts themselves are a little bit wider. I feel like it does lack some robustness because I've had some USB-C plugs fail on me on some older devices. But,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I think it could have used maybe just if the whole thing was like maybe a millimeter wider, like, and had that much more surface area for contact, and more, you have less, your forces would be a little more.
I guess it was, they were trying to look at like all the potential uses and, being in devices, mobile devices and stuff, to be as small as possible, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And we'll see. I mean, it's still working great on my laptop, and I use it for power through a dock station. I have for quite a while now, so I can't gripe too much.
This is a slight aside, but I've often wondered if those little magnetic plugs you can get, where like on the bottom of the phone, and you just put an adapter in, and then it has a magnetic contact on it, and then the cord, you touch to it. Oh. Look at that. How long you've been using that?
About 2 years now.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I did that because on the phone, I destroy my phones, and usually it's the connector that fails first.
Okay.
So the downside is, it's show and tell again. I use some like silly putty to get magnetized debris out of the connector itself, because sometimes you have debris that actually gets stuck in there. So I take this and I'm just going to shove it inside the connector, because it'll attract stuff, and then I'll clean it out
and stuff.
Yeah. And so periodically I have to do that, but which is why I have it handy. And I tried using it with higher draw devices, but that was unsuccessful.
Okay.
So there might be some stuff being developed to account for that, but at this time I haven't come across anything that I'm willing to put any dollars into. But I think the magnetic is great. I think it's that would be nice because especially if you have it as a module you can take in and out, then you don't have to you're not doing as much wear and tear on the connector itself.
Yeah, good point. Cool. Now what is it? Swell.
That is swell. Fantastic. Terrific. That's just terrific. So Steve's very own says, I have 4 laptops about 10 to 11 years old. That doesn't seem too old to me. So what about you, Adam? I know you recently moved and got rid of just about everything. So how old is your oldest machine, computer?
It's just over 2 years.
Wow. You're one of those.
Of the ones that I use, yeah, just over 2 years.
Is it a name?
It's the M1 MacBook Pro.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Your oldest computer that you use regularly is an M1 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
I hope everyone on the panel heard that and people listening in the chat. So we know what kind of a baller you are, right?
Stop hating, get money. No, really, it's again, like you said, I got rid of a lot of stuff when I moved. But yeah, so I have the M1 MacBook Pro as the oldest, and the only other computer I really use for personal stuff is this new Ryzen machine I bought like a few months ago. And then my work laptop that work provided me is the M1 Pro MacBook Pro. So yeah, that's my M1 MacBook Pro is the oldest one I use. But in my closet, unused, it's just sitting there. I have 2 of them. I have a 2018 Pixelbook Go that's in a box.
Is that like a Chromebook?
And yeah. And then my oldest computer that I own is a 2014 MacBook Air. And that is a very special machine to me and has a very sentimental value. So I hold on to it. And I guess I have a 2019 iMac that I try to remember that I don't have. Or try to not remember that I have, rather. You know what I mean?
Does it have bad memories?
Nah, just buyer's remorse.
Oh, okay.
It kind of sucks. Screen's great. That's about it.
What sucks about it? Like what makes it
It's
less
slow.
than? Okay.
It's an 8th gen i5. I think it's like 6 core, 6 thread. And you would think, oh, that should be plenty. It's not. It's just, it doesn't perform well at all. It supposedly has like a RX 570X or something in there. It sucks. Doesn't really like, it's really not great. And not that like I need a ton of power, but like you would expect these specs to be faster than it is. And they're, for whatever reason, just not performing right.
Is it a Mac OS issue or is it a?
Most likely, but I tried to put Linux on it, but the Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi driver for it.
Okay.
And I don't have Ethernet in my apartment, so.
Well, you could always get one of those like little Wi-Fi dongles. I don't know how good those are. I get mixed results with the ones I have. Dongle.
Yeah.
There we go. We said it.
The dongler. Yeah. Those are all the machines I have, but of the 2 that I actually use. Oh, and I guess my Steam Deck, if you want to call that, that's kind of a PC.
Well, you told me if you're staring at a Joy-Con when you're looking at it, then that's not a PC. That's what you told me. So I'm held that.
True.
That's the standard I'm holding to now.
But I could plug in this USB-C cable coming out of my monitor and get a keyboard and mouse and a desktop. So
then you put
kind of in a gray area.
It is a gray area. It really is.
This is the word of Adam.
Basically, I take it as gospel when it comes to like what is a computer. So
right. I wholeheartly agree with you. If there are thumbsticks poking out at me, then it is not a computer.
So saith Apostle Adam.
Yep.
Well, so I was looking at this poll and I said, well, how old is the oldest computer that I use regularly? And now Eric did put a caveat on there that wasn't in the poll, but like not just for novel things, but actually doing something with it. I'm like, well, what does doing something with mean? It's like word processing or like
useful, something useful.
And
that was the way I phrased it. Right. I don't care if useful means
Zoom isn't very useful right now.
Something different to you than it does function that you find useful.
Okay. Well, the oldest the oldest computer that I use on a regular basis was made in 1983, and that is a Commodore 64. I actually use it, and I sometimes just for like, well, I was actually looking for a word processor for it that I could actually effectively utilize, and I just kind of been playing around with that a little bit. How it's not, I wouldn't say it's exactly the greatest way to write something and transfer it to another computer, you know, like distraction-free writing. I'm looking for some sort of a distraction-free writing solution that is not a general purpose x86 machine. And I like the Commodore 64 keyboard, how it feels. Like it's even like the keys themselves, like they took a lot of time and effort into those keys and that design. But the original keys, they actually have like a concave thing, so it's more ergonomic. So when you're on the home row, it's actually quite nice. So I want to use that instead of, always using my laptop or this machine here, just because, not for any real spectacular reason, but just because I want to. And instead of playing around with different word processing applications, but the problem is I run out of RAM doing it, and that is an issue. So there's not a word processing program application that I can use that can utilize the higher memory beyond 64 kilobytes. But anyway, but if we're gonna go with an actual like modern-ish computer, like one that runs Linux, it's a 2006 Dell Optiplex like desktop that sits in the Bay Area behind me, and it hooked up to a TV, and I basically just use like YouTube videos and such, or whatever, podcast, things like that. That's how I use it. So yeah, good times.
Swell.
It's swell. It's groovy. Terrific.
Swell.
That's how we have to, something swell or not.
I was just reading in chat there. Joseph DeGamo says Solus project is dead. Website gone. Fedora 38 getting budgie. Will Solus switch to Fedora 38 or PC Linux OS? So I've just gone to my bookmark of Solus and it's not coming up. So that's very interesting, because now I know that what's his name's working on the desktop alone, or there's a team of them, the buddies of Budgie, I think it's called. So maybe the Budgie desktop's just going to be a desktop alone, possibly. But Solus have got other desktops provided as well. So that's interesting as well, isn't it? Because I didn't know, unless they're just working on their...
I'm on their GitHub right now just to look. And maybe I'm just interpreting this wrong. But breaking news on Linux Saloon. If I click on the projects, it says there aren't any projects yet.
Right.
There are 33 repositories. And I don't know.
That's very interesting. Because I know that the budgie is coming out on definitely with Fedora 38, because I was reading that on one of the Linux news sites during the week. And Joshua Strobel is working with the buddies of Budgie, trying to rebuild the desktop with EFL, I think it's called. But he's still maintaining the current Budgie desktop in its current form, I believe. So whether, because this is a question that a lot of people are asking of Linux Mint as well, should they just be a desktop alone rather than a distro, and provide the desktop? I know that question had come up many times, but I think that's what they're trying to do with the Budgie desktop now, possibly.
How does that work with Mint? Do they have a desktop that's theirs?
Yeah, that's Cinnamon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that Cinnamon was their thing.
Yeah, they built that when the new GNOME 3 came out, just like they did with the Unity and so forth, because nobody was happy with the way GNOME 3 performed or looked or whatever. So that's where all those spin-offs came of all those desktops back then. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at.
I remember that split, but I didn't realize that was also part of Mint. That must have been because Mint ran GNOME 2, and then when they went to 3, they wanted to stay with that desktop, and so they started maintaining their own. It makes sense now. Okay.
But Cinnamon is a fork of GNOME 3 at some point.
Yes.
Like I think they actually reforked it recently. So, but Cinnamon is still a Mint project, so it's not. They're Mint is
Yes, it's still a Mint project.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's
I'm
correct.
looking at the Solus GitHub, the github.com orgs git solus /repositories. And so the extra third-party packages was updated 6 hours ago, but the Linux Steam integration was updated last week, like sorting it by recent. The package management was 2 weeks ago. So it looks like, not a whole lot of activity. Maybe it's just they forgot to renew the website or something like that, some sort of, silly thing.
Maybe they're doing some big maintenance projects on the website. Maybe that's why it's closed at the moment. That does happen from my experience. Some websites are not reachable until they've done their maintenance and switched it back on. So that could be the case as well. Don't want to be spreading any rumors on Linux Saloon.
Yep, we don't send out any false information. But their website is down. That's not a false claim. Their website is
no, it is
reachable.
down at the moment. Yep. Interesting.
That's
Swell.
This isn't the ultimate, source of truth or anything, but on Reddit under the Solus project, there's no mention of anything. Update about continuing website outage. Here we go. Unfortunately, the outage of our websites is still going on. Somebody got sick right in the middle of it and couldn't physically be at the server's location to finalize the hardware changes.
There you go.
So it's just the website. There are mirrors apparently that you can get to stuff if you need to.
Well, that's good.
I was going to say Solus was always looked like it was continuing anyway. So
yeah, actually, they're saying to look at Twitter for updates. We could still start a rumor if you want.
I don't want to start any rumors, but it is just a little weird though that their GitHub is so quiet. Yeah, this could be a lull time of year. Who knows?
The sickness been going around.
It has been.
We could start like a completely innocuous rumor, like the Fedora guys are working with Andre 3000 from Outkast to make a login sound.
I like it.
Seems perfectly cromulent to me.
Right.
That's a swell idea.
I've been embiggened through that
I
idea.
love this direction.
But before we move on, Skrapp, how old is the oldest computer that you use regularly in your possession?
I would say the fifth gen Intel. That's the oldest one I use on the regular basis. Semi-regular. It's my auxiliary. It's my old desktop.
How long have you had it? Do you know?
I switched to Linux full time, like made the dive in 2017, but I had that PC for, I don't know, maybe a few years already built, but I didn't have an AMD graphics, or I didn't have an NVIDIA graphics card. And that's why I hadn't switched. So whatever year the i7 4790K came out, I picked it up the next year. I built it behind one cycle. And it's still a nice computer. The laptop I use with the 2060, because that one's got a 1060 in it, so that's what, 4-core 8-thread, and then my laptop is 612. And I spent as much money on this one laptop as I did putting into that tower, about $1,600, I think, altogether. I've told little stories here and there about how I got my good deals on even the processor, using a coupon from Best Buy deal from getting a phone on contract, and then going to Micro Center, and then price checking it at another Best Buy, and then going up to the counter and saying, here, and then $150 down on a $300 processor. The last year's top of the line. So
right,
it was pretty cool. It runs. I tell you what, you build something that's at the top or like the next gen down, it'll last you.
Yeah, I agree. I always like to stay like just behind, I like to stay on the cutting edge of technology because you'll financially bleed to death, but just like a little bit behind, when it's already a year old or a little bit, seems to be served me best financially. All right. Well, moving on to the main topic, our application appetizer Potluck. So I'm going to ask you like what applications you're bringing to the Potluck. whatever that may be.
What's cooking, fellas?
Well, I mean, as long as it's not like a hot mayonnaise salad, I think it'd be fine.
I've been running this one program on and off for a couple of like, I don't know, like maybe over a little over a year now. And then it came up on Linus Tech Tips again. It's I don't know if anyone's running it. It's I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's PCem-Emulator. Does anybody ever ran it?
No.
Oh, it's basically an emulator like, you know, VirtualBox, except for the fact that you can pick what motherboard you want, what video card you want. It's actually, I mean, I don't really have much of a use for it, except for the fact that I think it's really cool and fun to play with. You know what I mean? Like if you do want to run Windows 98, you can. It's pretty sweet. I've been playing with it for a while. I think you guys should all check it out. Linus Tech Tips had it on like a couple days ago, and I was surprised because I go, oh, I just found out about it like maybe a year ago. I'll put some links up for you guys can check it out. It's kind of I think it's more old school stuff though. I didn't really get deep into seeing if it had any new modern hardware really in it, but I don't know. Check it out. See if you guys like it.
I'm looking at their Wikipedia. It says they have it's similar to Virtual PC Box and QEMU and emulates almost all versions of Windows up to Vista, including Service Pack 2, MS-DOS, FreeDOS, CPM86 also supported. Earlier versions of OS2 require the hard drive to be formatted prior, while OS2 Warp 3 and Warp 4.5 requires unaccelerated video cards to run, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on through some of that. Yeah. Versions of Linux that support Pentium processor, BSD derivatives, BEOS 5. So the wiki for this has got a lot of info on it. That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun to play with. I try it out. I tried, what was that other one? X86 box or something.
DOS box maybe?
It's 86 box.
86 box, yeah. I played with that one a little bit too. I for some reason I was into emulators and stuff like that one day, and I started playing with all this stuff, and I was talking to some of the guys, one other guy that I know that does this kind of nerd stuff, and he started doing it too. So he's like, oh, this does sound like fun. So, something to talk about, something to try.
Well, this is actually very cool. So I'm on the system/motherboards emulated. So it targets like the 8088, so your IBM PC Junior, your 8086s, like the Amstrads, the Compact Desk Pro, Tandy Toshiba, VTech Laser, 286, so your IBM PS1s, PS2s, and no, that's not PlayStation, Eric. I need to get those confused. Packard Bell Legend 300SX, that's pretty awesome. That was like when Packard Bell just started to get going, or at least in my memory. Yeah, that's actually, it's very cool. Then specific graphics cards too, so like your 3DFX Voodoo graphics or Voodoo 2. Yeah, it's like the stuff from like the 90s, I guess. Different AdLib cards, Sound Blaster, stuff like that. That's a neat thing. So, what Jinda have you used? Like, have you been trying to like emulate something specific from a specific era for like nostalgic purposes?
Yeah, I found an old disk of Windows, I think it was 98, and I decided, hey, I'm gonna run it. You know what I mean? Just to see if I could. Yeah, that disk right there. And I just decided one day I'm gonna run this. I know I can run it other ways, but for some reason this is how I wanted to do it.
Super neat.
It's definitely swell. But I don't know how much use does it really have.
Well, I mean, I don't know. For me, I think it'd be fun to emulate some of the like Windows 3.1 just for nostalgic sake. But you can do that in you can do it in DOSBox too. But this might be a better way of doing it. I'm gonna look into that now. That's a very cool, very neato. What else? Tubular. What other words we're using here? Rad.
Tubular. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I never heard of this. This is a neat one. I'm putting that in the notes.
Oh, good. I tried to get something a little obscure. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what else to.
No, that's great. I like the obscure. I mean, it doesn't have to be obscure. It can be whatever you want, but something that you just can't live without.
Well, I could definitely live without it, but it's exciting to me.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
obscure.
This is neat.
Obscure, or you can't live without.
This is fun.
I'm definitely going to check that out. Colin, what's an application that you can bring here to the potluck that we haven't maybe sampled, or maybe it can be something we have sampled before?
No, well, I did bring this subject up last week, and Joplin was the one that I was using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But another one I will bring up today, because I think I spoke about Joplin last week, but Cherry Tree is one that I use quite regular on the desktop. Joplin's more of a phone desktop situation for more personal things, but when it comes to holding information about things that I do on Linux and trying to remember how I did this and that, Cherry Tree is my absolute go-to application that I absolutely love, because I can just sort all my stuff out in that. And whenever I need to know what a command was or how I managed it, and anything I do, I pretty much document in Cherry Tree, and it's a fantastic app. I think a lot of people, I've never made a video on it, and I probably should do that, but a lot of people say it's too busy for them when they use it. But I only use it in a very simple way, but you can put links to websites and all that as well. So if you ever need to wonder what you did or where that website was, I use those links within the Cherry Tree and the commands as well. So if anybody needs to know what I'm doing, I can just copy that link and give it to them, and they can go to the website where I originally found it. So I find that really handy as well. And yes, Cherry Tree is really, really great little app, and it's available on Windows, I think Mac as well, I believe, and Linux. Not sure about Mac, but definitely it's definitely cross-platform. It's a great little app.
And for the audience, both of these are kind of note-taking type of things, or you can also kind of do a little bit of markup publishing, right? Is that right?
What in Cherry Tree
or in Joplin, or
Joplin is definitely what did you call it again? Sorry,
markup.
Because it's got two. So it's got the technical side, and then it's got the side where it looks really nice. So I'm not sure what you call that, because I'm not technical about all that stuff, but definitely, yes, it's got all that, and that's really handy, because I find it's hard. The phone doesn't really do what the desktop does. So I can put some things in the phone, but it doesn't come out markdown or markup, whatever you call it, doesn't come out on the phone as good. So I have to adjust it on the desktop. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong with that, but yeah, that's really handy, I must say, because you can put headings and all that sort of thing, and it comes out really nice. So I'm sure there's a lot more other things I could do with it, but I just keep it simple pretty much.
Do you have any links you can share with the class on your applications?
Yes, I can give you a link for Cherry Tree, and I'll put that in chat.
Sweet.
No, I'll have to put it in our chat, and you can copy it, I think.
Groovy.
Swell.
In the past year, I think we had another application, Appetizer, where we talked about these note-taking apps before. Or maybe it came up in another conversation, but I tried both of those. I think, if I recall, Joplin's more of like an app you deploy, and it's web-based, where Cherry Tree is more just kind of a traditional app that you run standalone, right?
Yeah.
You don't communicate to it through a browser.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Joplin, you actually save a file on. For me, I don't know what other platforms you can save the file on, but you can save the Joplin file to Hotmail, and it syncs from desktop to phone. And I find that really handy when you're writing down things that you need that's important. Like I'm looking at building a new home at the moment. So whenever the missus and I go and have a look at some things and we talk about things, I'll write them down. And then when I get home, I've got all that information on the desktop because it's been synced. So I find that really handy because some things you just don't want to forget what you spoke about.
Right.
Yeah, Joplin is flat pack as well. I think I've only used it as a flat pack. I'm not sure. I'll check out if there's a website for that.
I used Joplin as an app image for a long time. That was really the only way they deployed it or that they made it available. And it was fine. I mean, app images are okay. And then they made it available on Flatpak, and because I have FlatHub, and because I have Flatpak everything, I just have used it on that.
Yeah, I find it really good. It's really come in handy. I find that sometimes things don't really come in handy, but when there's a real good use for it or a use case, you just don't know how powerful it is to yourself until you've actually got a real good use case for it. And I had it sitting there on my phone for quite a long time, never used it, never really got into it because there was no need for it. But when you want something to work for you, you will find an interest in how to actually use it. And it's come in handy for me. So I'm really happy with that.
Well, cool. I think I want to check out this Joplin. Not so much Cherry Tree, I think, at this point, because I want something that can sync between devices more so. But I think that like the Joplin seems like I've been using Simple Note quite a bit, and that works well for most things, but sometimes it just doesn't work well for, if I want something slightly more complicated. That's Simple Note, and I've used the Snap and the Flatpak for that, as well as the app image, and they all seem to work fine. They talk nicely to wherever they're talking to. But yeah, I think Joplin seems very interesting. That might end up on a future application appetizer of some kind, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
throwing it out there.
Sorry. The other thing I like about Cherry Tree is it's got like a little database local on the file on your hard drive as well. So I always back that up.
Right.
And I always keep it on a USB that's available within the home network. So if I'm testing out a distro, I can just download it from that hard drive, and it's up to date with all the information just in case I need any of it. So because it is mostly for Linux that I keep in there. So just in case I need some commands or whatever that I need to do, it's all in there. So that I find that really handy. And because it's a flat pack as well, most of the time it's at your fingertips on any distro, really.
Yeah.
To be honest. So I find that handy as well.
It looks like Sean Gold says that the nice thing on Joplin is you can sync across devices. Honestly, I use it most for my grocery or other store list to make sure I can pick up everything at the store. And that's how I use Simple Note an awful lot. I make the list on the computer, then I have it on the phone when I go to the store. I have does Joplin have like little check marks so you can like check it off too?
Yes, they do.
Oh, that's nice.
I discovered that the other day. I didn't know it had it, and then I discovered it. And on the phone you can just go, "Yep, done that." So that's really handy as well. Yeah, it's great. And I think you use that in markup, markdown. Is there a difference between markup and markdown? I don't know, people.
I looked up the definition because I wanted to see if I was saying it right. It says markdown is a lightweight markup language. So markdown is a lightweight version of markup.
Oh, there you go.
I never knew that, but I was educated today.
And I thought markup was a lightweight way of customizing your text or giving your whatever. Yeah, okay.
That's neat.
Neat. All right. Well, Mark, what application can you either not live without, or something that maybe we haven't talked about? It's really an open. It's whatever you want to bring.
I gotta say Keypass XC.
Okay.
I use Keypass XC all day long on almost every device that I have. I can't live without it. This is where I store, it's a password vault, but it's much more than that. It does integrate with the browsers, and I store all my URLs that I need to get to in there. So there are entries that are just the URL, so it's a bookmark, and that bookmark is basically saved. I use it as basically the launching point for anything I do throughout the day, and I use it on my personal, on my work, on my Linux laptops, on my Linux desktops, my Linux virtual desktops in the cloud, and I couldn't live without it. I use it on my iPhone. I do have it where it synchronizes through a cloud data store that I use, and it syncs to all the devices that I need, and I have tipped my developer on that.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. And again, be sure to tip your developers, right? But Keypass XC is actually, it's been working great for a couple of years. I've been using it. I did use Keypass before I guess the original project, and but Keypass XC it truly is multi-platform compatible to Windows and Linux, and I even noticed this week it was interesting that Tails is a live CD that allows you to try to browse the web securely, and it actually comes with Keypass XC included in their applications that they distribute. So it's in the Debian repositories, and I believe
It's a Flatpak and app image.
But yeah, Flatpak, app image, all of it.
So
I think with the I'm not sure. There was a time when I'm not sure that the browser integration stuff worked well with snaps. So I've never used that version.
So,
But yeah, it does integrate with all the browsers, and Chromium-based, Brave, and Firefox, and everything.
Does it store the information locally? So, like, if you lose internet connectivity, does it still work?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It is a local file system. You don't have to synchronize it to the cloud. In fact, I kind of like that. The competitor products that are cloud-based, those cloud providers have had breaches. The one I'm talking about is oh geez, the big password. LastPass. They've had breaches. That scares the death out of me.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm so glad I've never used that. Used that service. Thank you for that, Skrapp. But yeah, and I know there's a lot of fans of Bitwarden, but my go-to is Keypass XC. And
is that on Android?
Yep, it's called Keypass to Android, I think, because I use it on mine. Can let you know just a moment.
There are the Keypass database is a standards-based database, and so there are various clients that can still read the same thing. Keypass XC itself is used in the desktop stuff.
Yeah, because I'm on the Bitwarden because it's on my phone and it works really well.
Yeah. I use the clients on the phones that work with Keypass X, with the Keypass database, but it's not, like for Apple, there's not a Keypass XC app. There's a compatible Keypass that I use.
What are some of those clients that are good? Which one do you prefer?
The one for iPhone that I use is it's called Keypass, but it's KEY, or I'm sorry, KY Pass. Let me make sure here. Yeah, this is oh, that's not what I meant to show. There we go. There's the icon for it. KY Pass that's for Apple. And then on Android, let me see what I'm using there. Give me a sec.
It's Keypass #2 Android.
There's also a Keypass Droid that looks like I'm using. but maybe not sure that one's.
Yeah, using compatible clients is cool, kind of like the Fediverse, but at the same time, it's like it'd be nice to have one that's almost endorsed by them, that they're like, hey, this is cool, this one works, we trust it, because you're passing all of your data through that.
Well, and again, Keypass XC is not the originator of the Keypass database format, standard-based format, but they are probably the most. I think it's one of the most popular cross-platform managers, but I don't believe that they started the standard.
There's one here called Keypass X or Keypass DX also that comes up. I'll have to look through the reviews on this.
There was I think it was originally Keypass, wasn't it? And then they changed it to XD or forked it or something. I think
it was a fork. Yeah,
there's a fork.
Keypass, the original developer. Wow, looks like the initial release was in 2003.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I believe there are. It was a fork, or they've compatible.
Yeah, I've heard of Keypass. I haven't actually tried it. I've been pretty well ingrained in Bitwarden, but the downside is if I don't have network connectivity, I don't have access to my Bitwarden vault. So that is a problem.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that problem with Keypass. Again, it stores a local copy.
Keypass, I put the database on my phone from the desktop, and on the phone it picks up that database as well, which is really handy. But I find that it's hard to go back because I might do different things on the phone. So I've got to really sort of just keep a copy for the phone only, because it might change from what the desktop is, and desktop might have some stuff that the phone doesn't and vice versa. So that's the only thing. But once you start out with it, then you can copy it over and then just make them 2 individual ones. But it's handy, I must say.
And just to tell people, don't think of it just as just for passwords. I mean, I keep my software licenses in there, keep my SSH keys in there. I keep my, VIN and detail of my vehicles in there. So I was at the auto parts store today, and I couldn't remember how many liters this Mini Cooper's got, but I went to my Keypass, and of course the information is in the comments there. And I keep I use it for all sorts of things. It is my go-to.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Very cool.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing with Bitwarden, but I agree. Not being able to have it offline is. I mean, I have the desktop version, which I guess keeps a snapshot. Like, I'm pretty sure I can open up the desktop version and access the database being disconnected from the network.
I have to try that.
I have to test it. Yeah, I have to test it out, but I'm pretty sure the desktop version does. I was just gonna say, it's just really disappointing on my phone that if I'm having spotty coverage, because like you, Mark, I keep all kinds of stuff in there. And yeah, it's annoying that it takes such a long time to refresh every time on a pretty modern phone. So
call me old fashioned, but I just like to control that stuff myself. I don't want anyone to have anything to do with my passwords except me.
That's totally reasonable. I understand it.
Yeah. And that's why I use the Keypass. And I truly, it's I made it a way of life or kind of a habit for me. And so there's again, there is not one day goes by that I'm not in the Keypass, and it's my launch pad. So I truly have unique and long, strong passwords for everything. I don't have, any reused passwords, for any of my banking or any of that. So if one password does get breached by some company, big deal. They're not going to use it for anything else, right? And yeah, so it's allowed me to, be very secure. And then, of course, I've introduced my entire family to it. They all have their own Keypass XC that they're running with their own passwords.
Mhm.
And yeah.
That's the good thing to hear, is that you can get your family members to use something that's more secure. Like the other day, I was at my dad's and he was going through stuff. He's retiring at the very end of like the company he's worked for almost 40 years, and they just were bought. And so all of his, employment stuff that you do at the very beginning, with whether it's, your insurance and all that paperwork, was already like set in stone. It was just rinse and repeat, get up, go to work, do the boss thing, right? Well, now that they were bought, I was over there and he's like, I have spent more time going through and redoing all of this. I feel like a new employee. Like I have no idea what the heck. Like, and he was like searching for passwords for things in books and whatever. And I'm like, password manager's dead. You have a computer in this office, and you got a computer in the garage where you're at. If you ever need it, you just here.
Yeah.
It's one of the nice things to be able to help them out and say this works, and to hear that they're actually using it, and it's one that isn't like, that we hear about all the time, makes an even bigger difference.
That's cool.
I'll have to try it now.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Vince, what is something that you'd like to bring to the table?
I actually had a lot of trouble deciding what I was going to bring, but I thought I've decided finally on maybe something from completely left field, and I'll tell you about something called Open Visual Traceroute. Now, I don't know if some of you know what traceroute is. It's when you can actually find out where your packet of information on the internet's coming from, all the different servers that it hops around to.
Yeah.
This one allows you to view that route, but on a Google Earth type map, and you can see it pinging around, which is really cool. It's just a fancy way of looking at it. I thought that was very cool. It also does a whois, and I found this when I was trying to troubleshoot my own network when I was setting up my home server stuff and trying to figure out what my IP was and testing it, whether it was working or not. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It might not be for everyone. Some people might not have any use for it, but I just thought that it's nice to have.
Visual Traceroute. I'll have to check that out. That's something I've wanted to look at. There's a neat plugin that Firefox had at one point in time where it shows everything that a website is going to, and I don't know what happened to that plugin, but it stopped working. Instead, I've been looking for something else that did something similar, so that just might fit the bill.
It works really well. You can, if you're curious about any sort of website address, just plug it into the traceroute, and it'll show you where everything's coming from.
I used this application years ago. I'm glad to see they're still around.
Still kicking and still getting updates.
Now all we need is like a green monochrome interface so we can use it like we're, in some Hollywood hacker film. And we're tracing it around the globe.
With PC speakers.
That'd be interesting. I would bet that this is probably being used in a film, I reckon, because it looks fancy.
Yeah. Oh, I got to check this out. This is cool. Sweet. Well, thank you for that. Adam, I know you said you're going to bring up something that was dull, but I don't think it's dull. I want to know how you use your app.
So the app I've been using a lot lately is Visual Studio Code, because I'm one of those people.
One of those people that have to do things, be productive?
That enjoy Microsoft. No, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's so VS Code. You probably are all familiar with it in some way. I've actually been delving into a lot more of the like extensions and other capabilities that VS Code offers. One of the things that Microsoft has as an extension, as long as you meet the requirements, of course, for like installs, is dev containers. So there's a dev containers extension that allows you to spin up pre-made Docker images that Microsoft has with various dev environments, right? So say you're working with Python stuff, it will spin up a container with all like the Python libraries and all of the dependencies and stuff to get going with Python or Ruby or Go, or maybe you're doing some Node.js stuff, which is big because NPM and Node.js will pollute the hell out of your machine. Like, it will just throw so much crap at it. But if you can keep that in a container, your machine stays clean. And so these are like pre-made containers that you can spin up, and they're handled by the extension and also Docker on your machine, right?
Oh wow.
If you have Mac or Windows, it's in Docker Desktop, and that it will allow you to like clone a Git repo or start a new repo or any of that within the container, so that you can kind of compartmentalize your development environments instead of like spreading them all throughout your machine. But it also means that you can kind of keep a consistent environment, right? So like, if you have a bunch of people who are working on a project, you can have one container that has all of their needs in it, and you can just give them that image to create a new container with it. So that's been like really good for me, because I've been working with React.js stuff lately, and that's NPM all day, and I don't want my machine just full of NPM libraries, because those get really out of hand. So having those in a container is pretty great.
So VS Code actually can, within the application, assuming you have then the Docker system running, it contains all that mess, so it doesn't pollute your host system. That's very cool.
It will, using the extension, will start up using Docker on your machine, containers with specified images with all your stuff in it, and then it will automatically like while building the container, will copy in your Git repository and all that to keep everything separate.
Wow.
So that it doesn't pollute the rest of your machine. And then when you're done with it, just turn it off or destroy it.
That's pretty amazing.
And there's a bunch of other extensions. Like I use GitHub Actions for doing like CI builds. They have a GitHub Actions extension. So instead of loading up the site and looking at the progress, I can actually see it within VS Code while the build is running. It's like I can see the logs and everything from within VS Code instead of having to go out and make another web browser to look at GitHub.
Right.
I've been working in Azure as well, and so there's a lot of integrations with that. GitHub Copilot's great for AI stuff, helping with AI code completion and templating and things like that. That's built in, or you can have it built in. And they have a remote system as well that allows you to run your code and build your code on a remote system. So whether that's through SSH or in a container or a Kubernetes cluster or something like that. So like, instead of like, if I'm sitting in my workstation, but the code is actually on another machine, I can use VS Code to remote into that machine and edit the files on that machine through VS Code. So instead of SSHing in and fumbling with Nano, so
right,
it's kind of handy. There's so many good extensions out there, and like, if you have a need, obviously, I mean, if you're just editing an occasional config, it's probably a little overkill. But if you have a need, VS Code is like so solid. It covers so many bases. There's tons of extensions. There's tons of language support. There's a lot of community extensions that will help you with, like, you were talking about Markdown earlier. Like, there are Markdown extensions that help you with like code completion tags. So like, if you can't remember exactly what the tag is, it'll help you there. There's extensions that build in things like the Markdown one, for example. They have like a control palette, the command palette, I think they call it. If you bring that up and start typing out Markdown, like table of contents, it will generate a table of contents based on your Markdown for you. Stuff like that.
Wow.
So it's a text editor. I get it. It's not whiz bang flashy, but
it's pretty flashy. You're building containers.
Yeah. For it.
All right. So here's something that I found that's really interesting with VS Code. If, let's say, you were into programming on the 6502, like doing assembly code for like the Commodore 64 or Apple II, there is a plugin for VS Code that also integrates with an emulator, so you can actually do all your testing right there in VS Code with whatever it is you're developing.
Yeah.
That's pretty rad.
That is rad. And and there's like there's a C60. I just looked at it. There's a C64 basic extension
Oh, nice.
So it'll provide like syntax highlighting and stuff for C64 Basic.
Holy cow.
There's so much. It's so good.
Whole
groovy.
It's just Aris said it's groovy.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
But,
well, thanks for that. I wonder if that is it the same like VS Codium versus VS Code? Is there really a big difference?
Personally, as much as I know people don't like telemetry and all that kind of thing, I think if you go with the VS Codium, you're going to find that a lot of the really good extensions break because they expect those the proprietary bits to kind of still be there.
Okay.
And so if you rip those out, some of the like really handy stuff like GitHub Copilot doesn't work.
Okay.
I don't know if the dev container thing would work or not, but yeah, that's kind of that is the hanging point. If that's a thing for you, it's not really for me, but you know, if that's a hang up, then
Copilot might be handy for a guy like me. Cool. Thank you very much. So VS Code. Rapidly running out of time, but that's okay. Skrapp. I'm not sure if you had any applications that you wanted to share, put on the table for the rest of us to look at. And
I have been recently. I don't have anything as handy necessarily that hasn't been quite covered. I mean, I used it so far, but I have been trying to move on from using Tinkercad, and I found there's a YouTube channel with a tutorial and an app that goes, or the YouTube tutorial that goes with the app. So FreeCAD, and not just the standard FreeCAD, but Real Thunder branch. I believe there's also it's on FlatHub, I believe, as well. And the YouTube channel is called Maker Tales, not like Sonic and Tails, but like you're telling stories kind of tales, Maker Tales. And I will post the link. Is like there's 5 videos, and it gives you a crash course in how to use the constraints and to build simple objects and to cut pockets out of things, make holes in those shapes and whatnot. And in the last week, I moved from fumbling around in Tinkercad to figure out how to do stuff to making these handy little hooks from scratch in FreeCAD.
Nice. And
there's all complete with chamfered countersink holes for the screws. These sit on, now there's a whole bunch of these that, I have FreeCAD is really handy. Don't jump into FreeCAD unless you have someone to show you how to FreeCAD, because you won't be free. You will be trapped by your own ignorance. And you will be frustrated. Because I've tried before. And so me find this playlist.
I like FreeCAD. That was going to be one of the apps that I was going to, I considered talking about. I do like it. I don't use it a lot. But I have spent some time with it and 3D printed stuff using models that I created there. I found it pretty easy to learn after maybe it took me a couple of weeks, and I'm by no means an expert. I'm really just I can barely use it, but it is there's a lot of good information, and again a lot of videos, and I like it.
Yeah,
it's available.
Snap. It's
app image and everything.
Yeah, yep. I've been using the app image personally. That was the first one I downloaded. Maker Tales speaks very fast but he's very articulate, and you might have to slow him down a little bit and pause and catch back up. But he's very thorough, and to be able to go from just making the tutorial box to figuring out how to do all of these constraints was really cool. And this is a little more advanced than what he shows you in that. But after a few hours of playing around, what I was going to say is these are hooks for controllers, and they sit inside my TV stand. And I have 2, 4, 6, 8, and I have 8 different types of controllers, and there's 3 switches. One sits in the dock, and then the other 2s are the light. The other 2 switches are lights, and they sit in there with a Switch Pro controller, and all of them are using these little hooks and with little it's fun. FreeCAD's great.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about the special version that you mentioned?
Real Thunder.
Yeah.
He explains the difference at the very beginning. I don't remember all of the specifics, but
Okay.
I think
But watch Maker Tales to get more information on that.
I would. I know one thing that he does at the very beginning is he'll step you through all of the preferences that he changes. Some of them he'll tell you shouldn't apply for you because he's on a 4K screen and he's doing a screen cap and he's doing some of it for your benefit so you can see. Sometimes it's still small on the screen through there and you'll have to pause and maybe, if you have a bigger screen or you can zoom in a little bit on it or full screen it. I had it full screen on one monitor and then FreeCAD in the other monitor. But some of the control schemes that are in the standard version of FreeCAD are different in FreeCAD Thunder and Real Thunder Branch. And the one thing as you change is how to navigate in the 3D view is set to Blender shortcuts. Now, some of the shortcuts he uses are not the same because those videos are older, but it's not hard to just hover your mouse over wherever the buttons are on your toolbar. You can set it up how he's got it and get used to, the different shortcuts as you go. And you'll need the shortcuts because he's quick. And once you get used to what your shortcuts are, and I still don't have all of them. Some of them I'm still pecking the mouse for, but yeah. Check out Maker Tales for all that.
So I looked at on Reddit. Not that Reddit's a great place for anything, but it says has an improved topo naming algorithm, and I think that in the Maker's Corner Telegram group, it was Yannick who sent me this information, and I haven't tried it yet because I've been busy with other things. But if this actually, if what I'm reading here is that it actually holds then the references like they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Then this might be the saving grace for FreeCAD for me, because the biggest problem I've had with FreeCAD is when I make a change to a feature that's up the model tree, the whole model blows up, and then I get very not happy, and I want to break things because the model broke. So if this actually solves that, then this might save me about $800.
So what's that $800 being spent on currently?
Nothing. I've been toying around with getting commercial CAD software because I'm to the point where I can't do a lot of things I want to do with FreeCAD, but this might actually solve it. So let's find out. So very, very cool. I already have it installed. I just haven't done it yet. So I'll make it a point to actually get to that. So FreeCAD Real Thunder.
Yeah, it's so nice now being able to do some of these basic shapes, because not only did I do that, I have a little hideaway set of hooks for my wife's doodle pad. It's a light board, one of these monoprice light boards. This monster sits flush underneath the desk on a set of little hooks that I made that they're just like a little right angle, and there's 6 of them, 3 on a side, and this thing goes right under there when it's out of the way. Don't have to worry about it. I've did that. I've done things in the kitchen, putting hooks up to hang pots and stuff, and I don't have to go surfing around all of the different websites, though. That's fun, going and searching around the different maker sites and like printables and whatnot. But shoot, now that I can just sit down here and make them, it's like, I need something hung on the wall, honey. Okay, let me sit down and CAD it up, put my headphones on and go,
Yeah, I had to do a shelf peg because the shelf peg that I had broke. So there you go. Thanks for that.
No problem.
Eric, how's your network connection? Not good, huh?
We'll see if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. You sound a little different.
Okay.
Like you're coming out of the phone, maybe.
I'm on a phone.
Okay. Is there any application that you want to share that we should all or give a try? If not, that's okay.
I'm gonna pass just because.
Okay.
Yeah, Zoom. It's actually not Zoom's fault. It's my network. I went all in on a particular brand, and it's not been a good experience.
I gotcha. No worries, man. I get it. Aris, if you're still there, I know I caught you at a bad time. Is there an application you'd like to share?
I'll do a simple one since we're kind of running kind of time. qBittorrent. Whenever I download any distro and I want to download something, I always replace transmission or something else with qBittorrent.
I don't
It
know that
always
one.
seems to give me seeders when other applications don't for whatever reason.
So you find it better than transmission?
Yes, I've had people say, but I think it was Chick one time. He was trying to download some distro, and he said he couldn't. And I tested it with qBittorrent and it was working, but he was using transmission. And
Okay, I'll
that
give that a
hasn't been
try.
like the only time. I don't know why, but for some reason qBittorrent sometimes finds other seeders that transmission doesn't.
Interesting.
All right.
And
it's
it
good to
just
know.
seems like there's a lot of options if you want to really play with it. And it does a good job as far as I know.
All right, I'll give that a try, I think.
What
Try that.
what does it use for the graphical widget? I'm looking at the screenshots on
It must
on
use
source.
cute.
Does
That's
okay.
qBittorrent.
Oh, okay.
I
well,
think so. I
yeah,
think
it does say with a nice, cute interface. Huh?
it's cross-platform, so it works on FreeBSD, Linux, Mac, and Windows.
Nice. I have to give that one a try. I've been using qBittorrent, but there's sometimes when I can't get a seed, like a seeder, like I'm just sort of hanging out there with nothing, and I'm gonna give that a try. Put that on the old list here of things to try.
For people with a home server as well, you can run qBittorrent in a container, so a Docker container. And if you want to help seed ISO files, for example, since your home server is running anyway, you can just leave that on, as opposed to leaving your PC on if you're running qBittorrent on your desktop or laptop. So I do that sometimes.
Yeah, I'll leave a kTorrent going, and I'll see some things that I download. All legal things. They're all just projects, open source projects. So don't come out the pitchforks with me. But yeah, very much. All right, I got some comments in the chat that I wanted to hit real quick. Ulfnic, he brought up something called Micro by Plan 9. He says it would be a great replacement for either Vim or Nano. Has mouse support, including drag to select and stuff like that in the terminal. It's a terminal-based text editor, similar to Sublime Text, but inspired by Plan 9. I'm sorry, it was inspired by Plan 9. So it's highly customizable, similar to Vim, syntax highlighting, and a complete in-app documentation. So it says, should replace Nano by default on every distro. So that's something, good terminal app. Thank you very much, Ulfnic, for that. And I just say the downside is you need to use the in-app documentation because it's hard to find answers online, but the quality of documentation is extremely high. And Rita, she has lots of applications. So Calibre or Caliber, as I was corrected, I think in one of the comments, still looks like Calibre to me. Kobo Desktop, I don't know what that is. Is that a reader of some kind? Also uses Keypass XC. And Evolution for contacts and Electron Mail, Streamio, and Ducky TV. I don't know what those are. And also Proton VPN. So there you go. Some other applications to check out from Anna Rita. And if she uses it, they must be easy to use because she doesn't like to faff around with her computer. All right. And then for me, I was going to contribute, if you want to play with Commodore machines in an emulation, Vice, the versatile Commodore emulator, it's great for that. I use it quite a bit for different things, and so you can check that out if that's something that interests you. All right, so next week,
please provide the link on that.
The Commodore emulator.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually it's in most distributions, but I'll get a link on that at some point. So open mic night next week. And then we're going to have a distro the following week. I don't have a distro. I'm thinking like CentOS or something like that to kind of keep in line with Linux user space for in 2 weeks. So if you want to start playing with CentOS now, I highly recommend that. But next week will be an open mic night. So bring whatever topics you want. I'll have some news lined up, some things I didn't get to this week because we talked about our applications. There's quite a lot on the Potluck table. Just some real quick housekeeping, just a reminder, or just to talk about it again. The Linux Saloon Telegram has had some updates. Aris divided things out into 3 rooms. So if you So things I think are a little bit more, the conversations are broken down. There's still the general chat, which is just like before. Got desktop screenshots and this week's show topics discussion. So there, if you want to talk about the show topic specifically, you can put that. You can really talk about it anywhere if you want. It's just a way to sort of break things down. There is a calendar for upcoming Linux Saloon shows, as well as I put the Linux Out Loud live recording. That's on the calendar as well if you want to check that out. I think it was Ulfnic who helped me make that so it's a little more international friendly. So now it doesn't just show New York time, it'll show whatever time zone you're in. So I did fix that. All right, since it is closing time, I'm going to get through this pretty quickly. Steve's very own, he was in the chat for a little while, but he didn't hang out for very long. Or maybe he's still there, he's just lurking. He's kind of a lurker. He has a coffee clash every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. Mark, you have the Atlanta Linux Enthusiast Group. How did last week go? I missed it.
It went great. We've had some new people join, and again, it is we meet every Sunday from 3 to 6 U.S. Eastern, and people brought their questions and we helped them out. Actually, last week was an entire walkthrough of doing backups using RDiff backup, and it was very detailed. Our co-organizer JD walked people through doing this iterative backup process, and keeps everything local. It's no cloud, no technology type of crazy stuff like that. It's using technologies that have been around in Unix and Linux for years and years, and very basic backup. It's what you should be doing. So there are newer tools that are great. We talk about, but they are for maybe a different purpose, such as sometimes we talk about Mint and Time Shift. So so anyone is welcome to join us. You can get more information at aol.org, and again, there's no set agenda, but we try to help you with question and answers.
Excellent. So tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern and you go for how many hours again? Is it 2 hours, 3 hours?
3 hours,
3 hours
every
okay.
Sunday. So if you can't make it this Sunday, and you need help sometime, just remember aol.org. Yep.
Excellent. Linux User Space. Didn't write anything down on that, but check out Linux User Space. I pretty much glob a lot of things from their show, and I try and insert them here because, well, it's a good show. Dan and Leo make for some great conversation and throw a lot of facts at you, and they really do some deep dives into everything. A good way to feel ignorant about your knowledge of things is to listen to them talk. You'll get some new wrinkles in your smooth brain.
I enjoy those shows when I watch them.
Yeah, I think they're really funny. I've been watching them as opposed to just listening to them lately because I can. And Leo makes me laugh. Like he has this comedic timing about him that I'm not sure. Like, kind of reminds me of the that Captain Underpants movie. One of the I don't know if it's George. I think it's George. Kind of the way he talks. Anyway, I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We're doing a live recording on the 17th of February, 2023, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So it is in the Linux Saloon calendar. So if you want to check that out, it'd be great to have you for the live show. I have a website called qbittorrent.com. I do stuff, and I publish things. You can check that out. Linux Saloon is part of the TuxDigital network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as for everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas. Deployed overseas.
Oh, goodness.
What's that? Now, as far
it
as
feels like sorry, go ahead, Nate.
I was going to say,
Yeah, to
Did I
Debian
answer
file
the
server.
question?
Go ahead.
I could grab one, but I don't know if this has it. Nope. The remake does not have it that way. So, Aris, what application that we haven't really talked about a lot that you've been using that you really you thought you'd share with the class? If you have one. No pressure. I feel like I'm pressuring you. All right. I'll move. I'll go on to Jinda here. I don't want you to ban me out of my own thing.
You're on mute, Eric. Unless he's on the phone. Eric, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry.
And then
it is very disappointing. Like on my. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Call me old-fashioned.